Bob with us, this is quite an extraordinary number of children, and this teacher thinks that a number of them are autistic, and that somehow might be having an influence on their decision. Is there a connection?
About 35% of the people who attend the Tavistock Child Clinic are autistic.
Which is the only clinic which deals with
yeah, so
this in
there's
children.
a disproportionately high number. I think it's maybe about 1% in the general population. I might not be sure of that. But just say why I'm concerned, if you don't mind, because the very first person that I saw 25 years ago was somebody who'd been living as a woman for 9 years and had fully transitioned and then came to realise that it was a big mistake, at which point, of course, I'm sorry, it's breakfast television, but he'd lost his penis and it was really a deep tragedy for him. He was very suicidal, very depressed, and he got into psychoanalysis with me and recovered, but he really wished that he'd had psychoanalysis before he'd surgically transitioned. And in a way, that's why I'm so passionate about this.
Oh, India, you're shaking your head. I mean, 17 kids in one school, right? How can this possibly be right? It can't be.
It can, Piers, and I'll tell you why. Because 1% of the world's population are trans, so if you equate that 17, so you now have 1,700 pupils in that school across 10 years, so 10 school years, that is. So 17 pupils in that context isn't that great. And the only uproar here is because it's a relatively new thing. The one case that you cite, I would argue against the fact that the vast majority of people who go through the transition are actually extremely happy. We've been treating this condition in a particular way for 50 years now. The first sex change took place before the first heart transplant. Doctors understand it.
Of the referrals to the Tavistock clinic we're talking about, right? 2 were 4 years old, 13 were 5 years old,
Oh, my goodness.
30 were 6 years old. Again, how can this possibly be right? I've had 4 kids. They don't know what the hell they're bloody choosing for breakfast, let alone what sex they want to be. How can this be right that we're referring kids of this age for potential surgery to change their sex?
Well, again, this is all wrong because nobody gets referred for surgery at that age.
What are they being referred to?
They get referred to psychologists who look at them. And like any treatment under the NHS or medical, it's a real struggle.
Have you had kids, India?
Any. I have. I've got one son.
Could you even imagine at 4 years old?
Of course, I knew from my earliest recollection, probably
from 4?
3 or 4, I was aware that something was wrong, and very quickly I became aware.
So you think this is right, then?
Piers.
Yeah,
all of it?
As quickly...
Do you have any concerns about it?
I have no
Piers,
concern.
could I...
Well, can I just finish my little bit, and then I will be quiet. As I could say to you, how do you know who you are? And it's the same question, you know. We know who we are. There's not a problem. And the thing that I do object to a little bit is that I come in TV studios, radio stations on a regular basis, and it's almost as if I'm on trial for being trans and other trans.
Actually, I think you're a very good advocate for it, and you give a very...
And there is some craziness that goes on that I disagree with, and I heard your comments earlier on, which you're probably going to refer to later on, about the monikers, you know, the names. I totally agree with you.
Emergency services being told not to say Mr. and Mrs. or Sir.
It's a disservice,
and lady, because, you know, some people might think, well, actually, I don't identify like
you're making things harder for
I think it makes... I totally agree. What it does, actually, it just alienates people rather than bringing people to a more inclusive view about this. And see, my view's always been I completely support all transgender rights. I'm just very concerned about the age that people get put into the system, if you like. And I think that's my concern.
Look, I really agree with you. That's a problem. But my main concern is child protection. And I think that gets overlooked here. And we should have a conversation together about how best to prevent people having unnecessary surgery, unnecessary hormones. And the fact is that nearly 100% of the people who get put on puberty blockers go on to full medical transition.
That's not actually true. Can I just mention the fact that we have something called the World Health Organization, which consults in every country around the globe, medical professions from all disciplines.
What age would you be put on
and they
blockers?
all agree. There's a consensus of opinion here. Prior to puberty, because...
What's the consensus about?
The consensus is the treatment of people who...
Yeah, but all I'm saying is that the Tavistock Clinic says 95% of people who go on puberty blockers go on to full medical transition. A study by De Vries in 2011...
No, but we can play statistical tennis.
No, it's
I've
not.
got as many
OK, well, let's forget the statistics.
Yours.
How are we going to prevent unnecessary transitions with regrets?
Are you speaking for the majority consensus view of the medical profession, or as an individual? I don't know what your religious beliefs are, or if you have particular views on this topic for a certain reason. As a trans person who's actually been there, worn the T-shirt, met lots of transgender children, I sort of understand...
Can we agree that if anybody transitions and ends up regretting it, they will have lost their fertility, they may regret it, their sex life is very likely to be seriously impaired.
But you're looking through from the perspective of somebody who wants to keep the anatomy that would do that. Transgender people in my situation don't want to keep it.
I mean,
we embrace losing it.
Can we protect these children? That's what I'm saying.
Of course we protect it now. Everyone's looking after it.
It's about children.
Of course.
And as we all know, children haven't made their minds up about very much at all, and they're exploring their identity. And what people are concerned about is that something might be put in place that they may regret, may change their minds about, may not really know about, may be influenced. You know, this report referred to people being influenced by YouTube stars, as we know.
But this is
hugely influential.
Well, two things really quickly. I'll whittle through them. This story here, I don't believe the story would have been run on any other topic. You know, there's no confirmed person, there's no confirmed school. How do you check the facts?
Now, the Mail on Sunday didn't make this story up.
No, but you still wouldn't...
I work for the Mail on Sunday.
Piers, you wouldn't
Trust me, this story is true.
You would not run a story without credit it and so on. I can't get a feature in a magazine without thinking my age.
You've already said you're not surprised by the findings. I think most people watching will be absolutely staggered that 17 kids in one school
that is 1%
are going
of
through this.
1,700.
Well, so you keep saying, but it still seems to me a staggering number. My real issue, though, is the percentage of these kids at this school who apparently have gone through this, and we're seeing at the Tavistock Centre, who are autistic. And there's a mother quoted, the journalist Caroline Farrow, who said, "It's so disturbing. One of my children has autism. Once they get an idea into their head, no matter how mad, there's no shifting it. Girls with autism are often desperate to fit in. Being trans gives them both the cred and peer attention they need while confirming their sense of being different." In other words, there may be a particular issue, given these numbers, with autistic kids. And this comes back to child protection. But should we not be doing more to protect autistic children from, in a sense, themselves over this kind of thing?
But
they may not actually want to be doing this. It's just their condition means they get led along to it.
Again, as individual points, I totally concur with you there. But what happens, as is often the case with transgender stories, issues get conflated. Sometimes it's sex offenders.
That's true.
And all of a sudden, everybody who's trans is a sex offender. Here we're talking about autism and being transgender. The two are not automatically linked. There might be cases, but just going back to the fact where you are linking the two there, historically, gay people used to be connected to having an illness or needing a treatment for something else. They're not possibly gay. They need to go into hospital. They need to treat it another way. And it's just particular...
OK, we've got to leave it there. We have to leave it there. Thank you both very much. Interesting debate. You know, it's becoming more and more prevalent in our society, stories like this. And, you know, India, every time you come on, I think you speak very eloquently on behalf of the transgender community, and it's this...
Well, it would be really nice to come on and do something positive, because there's lots of good people out there like me that aren't a threat to society, are completely normal, and I would like to see more people on TV from my section of society with a smile on the face, having a laugh, doing normal things.
You are here, and you're doing just that.
Thank you very much.
Good to see you.